Have you done?
Yeah.
Have you done bungee jumping?
Yeah, heaps, man. I actually started off bungee jumping here in Cairns.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow, yeah.
when I moved up here, I moved here when I was 18.
Yeah.
And my brother took me out there. I've always been scared of aeroplanes. Always
Yeah.
been scared of skydiving.
Yeah.
He took me out there and he's like, "Oh, try bungee jumping," and got the membership back in the day when it was AJ Hackett.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I racked up like 25 jumps or something in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was cool. But and it's scary because you think you're going to die. You think you're going to
100%.
hit the deck. But never thought I'd do skydiving, man. Like that's
Yeah.
an interesting story which I can tell you about.
How you
But
got into it?
yeah, like bungee jumping is cool. Actually, our Christmas party's at the bungee.
Oh,
jumping.
really?
Oh, no way.
Now when you bungee jump, is it just like it just doesn't hit the same adrenaline centers?
You get the
or?
same feeling of like, oh shit, I think I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you trust the equipment, you trust the crew, so you know that everything's going to be okay, and you just commit and you do it.
Yeah.
So you just,
Same as
like,
skydiving. You trust your gear, you trust the people that you're around, you trust your training, and you just do it.
And you've done it that many times at that point that
It
Yeah.
works out all right. But you do get that little bit of hint of like,
it's a little bit
Yeah.
rough,
maybe
yeah.
I am going to go in.
But like, if the parachute fails, like you have your backup chute.
yeah, that's right.
If
yeah.
the bungee fails, are you having a rough day? Or
Yeah, you're probably
Pretty hard.
yeah, probably going to hit the deck. But
Pretty
like
rough.
bungee jumping through AJ Hackett, which
Yeah.
is like the founder of it. I don't think they've ever had an incident or a death.
No.
Maybe
Yeah.
they've had a bit of an injury, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure. I can't speak on that. But
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a death recorded.
Yeah, I don't
in
think-
Australia, in skydiving, on average, you get within the sport of skydiving in Australia, so licensed skydivers, you get around about 2 to 3 people die every year.
Far
Yeah.
out.
There's about 6,000. Don't quote me on the number,
Yeah.
but it's around
Yeah.
about 6,000 licensed skydivers in Australia.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've already lost about 2-3 friends this year from skydiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry to hear that.
And then base jumping's on another level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So base jumping is illegal in Australia. So
Yeah.
most people go over to Europe, Switzerland, Italy. The Dolomites in particular is
Yeah.
a really popular spot. And yeah.
So it's like with the wingsuits, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So that proximity flying. So to get into base jumping, a lot of skydivers, they start off skydiving to get into base jumping because it's the
Oh,
same
really?
principles.
Yeah.
Like the way you fly your body, the aerodynamics is all the same,
Yeah.
but you just got less time to work with. Out of an aeroplane, you got about 60 seconds.
Yeah.
On a base jump, you got anywhere from like 5 to maybe 30, depending on what you're jumping from.
Yeah.
So, but then you have obstacles. You have rocks. You have trees.
Yeah.
Things can go wrong. So
So a lot
Yeah,
of
I've-
people already have that as their sort of end goal, as they want to learn to base jump.
not everyone, but you get the odd person that comes into the sport going, I want to get, my end goal is to be a proximity wingsuiter.
Yeah.
And
Insane.
most of the time, you never end up seeing that person ever again.
No.
Yeah.
That's
I've
insane.
never done it. I never will.
No.
Yeah.
Cannot say that like being like hyper educated in skydiving and base jumping was on my 2024 bingo card, but like
Yeah.
here we are.
round
Here
up
we
the-
go.
Man, it's
Yeah.
really interesting. Like I never was interested in skydiving, so I'll tell you the story about
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
got into it. I was about 20 years old, living here in Cairns, and I was majoring in Japanese at university, and I needed a part-time job, so I opened up the Cairns Post. And there was a job there for someone working behind the counter, doing bookings. If you can speak Japanese or Chinese, it's a bonus. So I was like, sweet, I can speak Japanese because I lived there for 3 years,
Yeah.
in my younger years, and that was my passion in the day. But I wasn't interested in skydiving by no means. So I got the job, and a year went by, and got friendly with all the boys that work there, and they were like, you need to do a jump, jump. You can't sell this product unless you know what the product is.
Yeah.
How good is skydiving, guys? You ever done? No. Nah, personally, no. I'm not crazy. Yeah.
You should do it. It's really good value. Have you done it? No.
Me selling houses all day, I've never bought one.
I can do your 5 jump package. It's so much better when you do it 5 times. You done it once? Nah.
You can't do that, right? So I was like, man, I'll do one. So fair enough. And I hated it. I was shit scared.
Really?
I didn't like it. I had like when I was younger, like when I was 15, I had an experience where I flew over to America, and the plane sort of like dipped out of the sky, and the mask came down, and ever since then I had a fear of flying. So I was like, no way I'm doing it ever again. That's one and done.
Yeah.
And then anyway, a few beers later and a few months later, I did another one. And then the boys were like, you should do your license. So typically, like to do your license, you do it over about 11 to 12 jumps. You can do it up here down in Innisfail or Tully locally, but it's about 12 jumps, and it should only take you about a week, maybe 2, depending on the weather. But it took me 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Because I was that scared, you know. I'd do a jump, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
You know, and then the weather would come in.
Were you getting that feeling after that they talk about, like that real cathartic, like the hormones?
Yeah, you get like a huge adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
And you're on a high, and then you just crash.
Yeah.
You get really fatigued.
Was the fear outweighing that adrenaline high in those early days?
It was, the adrenaline was just, they call it sensory overload.
Yeah.
And they test for that. So you jump with an instructor and they're watching everything that you do. A lot of people that get sensory overload forget where they are or what height they're at. They just sort of wig out. That I probably got a little bit of that at the start. For me, it was more like, if I don't do this, like I'm never going to do it. I need to just push through this.
Now or never.
For me, it was a personal goal of trying to conquer that fear of flying.
Yeah.
That anxiety. I knew it was like anxiety has played a big part in my life. Hence why I'm a bit grey. And I wanted to conquer that. So I was like, I need to do this. So as much as it was holding me back, it was like, I'm going to win at the end of the day. Yeah. So I finished my license after 8 months, worked in the skydiving industry for multiple years. I still do as a videographer. But I got to about 250, maybe 300 jumps, and I decided, you know what, I've had enough. Because I was always scared.
Yeah.
Most people that skydive, especially licensed skydivers, they love it. They rock up to the drop zone and they're like, we can't wait to do like just 8 jumps today. And itching for it. I was never itching for it. I was just trying to conquer a fear. That's all I was trying to do.
So like really over that 300 jumps, like it never sort of
I'd
away,
get comfortable with it. You know, you'd be in free fall and you'd feel relaxed, but I would never be the type of person that would ring up my friends and go, hey, let's go skydiving.
Let's go today,
It would take someone like my friend or my brother who got into it to go, hey, we're doing it, and you feel a bit peer pressure to do it.
Do you think doing so many jumps and forcing yourself to be afraid so many times has calloused you in other areas of your life where you now don't, you force yourself to do something so terrifying, it makes so many other aspects of life that normal people would think is scary, is you're just like, that this is nothing right now?
Yeah, 100%, bro. It gives you a lot of confidence. So, you know, a lot of people struggle with public speaking or like being on a podcast and talking to people. It's definitely given me a lot of confidence in many areas of my life, for sure, 100%. I never would have picked up a camera and decided to make a film if it wasn't for skydiving. You know, even if I had the skills to do it, I still wouldn't have done it because I wouldn't have had the confidence. So skydiving definitely gave me that confidence for sure.
Well, that's
because I was like, if I can do that, I can do anything.
I love that.
I think that segues into why you're sitting here with us today, Paddy.
Yeah, bro.
Tell us about your story and tell us about Lucch and Ben.
Lucch and Ben, yeah. So, it was well over, probably about 2 years ago now. So Mark Lucchi, who's an interesting character, is a skydiver, and Ben. And I never met Ben before. I had heard of him through the community, but I knew Lucch personally. But they were skydiving down in Byron Bay, and it was for a friend's 1000th jump, which is quite a milestone in skydiving. And they were doing a big way. So a big way in skydiving is sort of considered anything above 8 people in the air is considered a big way. And you need to have certain licenses ticked off before you can participate. So everyone in the air were competent. They knew what they were doing. Ben was like the last person to get out of the plane. So he's sort of diving down towards this formation in the sky. And he's miscalculated the whole scenario. And he's collided with Mark, or Lucchi, and knocked Lucchi out. And then Lucchi's pretty much falling, knocked out towards the ground. And Ben's got a really bad broken leg, busted up knee, actually. And so Lucchi's life was saved by an AAD, which is called an automatic activation device, which is compulsory to wear in skydiving in Australia. And it's basically just like a little explosive device that sort of cuts the cord that holds the reserve.
Yeah.
And so he was seconds from hitting the ground and his life was saved. Now, he got up 2 weeks later, he was skydiving again, living his life. He bounced back.
Yeah.
You know, he's a strong man. He's was a professional kickboxer for a while, and he's gone through a lot of tough times, and he's quite resilient. Ben, on the other hand, his knee was pretty banged
Shattered.
up.
Yeah.
And he went through a lot of guilt, and he struggled mentally with the whole scenario. So that led him going down a dark path of being depressed and wanted to commit suicide at one point. And Mark heard about this, and because they weren't they were an acquaintance, but they weren't really that friendly beforehand, right? And then they became quite close, and they helped each other. Mark went out of his way to, you know, spend time with Ben, and straight away forgave him, and you know, said, "Hey, bro, I forgive you. You know, like, it's all good." And then this sort of friendship started amongst them. Now, whilst this was happening, they sent me this random message. I was just at home, you know, editing on my computer. And they said, "Would you be interested in making a documentary?" And I was like, "Oh, I've never really done it before, man. I don't really know if I'm capable of doing it. Let me think about it." And I thought about it for a while. But as I was thinking about it, it resonated with me, their story. Yeah. So I was like, I need to be involved in this. I just don't know if I'm capable of doing it. Yeah. So then I set myself a challenge. You know, I was like, right, I really want to be involved, but I don't know if I can do it. But I'm going to prove to myself, the same way that I proved to myself that I could jump out of a plane, that I'm going to do this. Yeah. So 2 years later, I followed them for 2 years. I flew down to the Gold Coast multiple times from out of Cairns, and filmed their story. And we've finished the movie. Our main focus was men's mental health, which is, you know, it's close to them and it's close to me, and it's something that I like speaking about, and I think that a lot of men should speak about more, but not just men, you know, women also, and people of whatever, you know, identity should speak about it more. But I'm a man, so therefore I'm just advocating for men. Yeah. And so, we've made this movie, and it's sort of gone bigger than what we expected. I just thought, we'll just get this little doco together
Dip the
and
toes
it'll
in
be
the
all
water.
sweet.
Yeah.
Next minute, we're, you know, we've entered into multiple festivals around the world. We've won a lot of awards and accolades as well. Yeah. We got invited down to Byron Bay Film Festival, which is wicked. That was awesome. Yeah. And our premiere's this weekend on Saturday, the 14th, at Hoda Theatre. So it's quite surreal. Like, I'm sitting here with you boys telling you all this, but it is quite surreal. It's
been a long journey.
Yeah, it has been a long journey,
Yeah. I think it's crazy, like, we all sort of watched the film beforehand, and just how many different shots and how personal it sort of got.
Just how professionally it looks as well too.
For such a debut,
like, it looks like you've just logged onto Netflix, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Like,
it was fantastic.
It was, and you really lose yourself in the moment as to what you're watching. And I think we were only just having a very brief conversation about it before you came in, and all of us touched on like a different area that kind of, you know, touched us and really reached out to us. So it's amazing. I do want to go back to that, just that process from when you were kind of just recording the skydiving and into that process to the research and what goes into a documentary and kind of that learning curve you went through.
So skydiving in Australia, I should say around the world. So professional skydiving is called fun jumping in the skydiving world. So there's many fun jumpers around the world, and they have these events called boogies, which are pretty much like a skydiving festival. They go for like a week long. So in my early days, I started to go to these festivals, and I'd spend a whole week there and create what's called a day tape, which is pretty much like a highlight reel of the whole day of skydiving. So you're collecting like, you know, over 100 jumps of people, and then shooting B-roll on the ground, and then you're editing that with music and then presenting it by 8 o'clock at night. So it's like really fast paced on the go. And you need to know like what looks good, what doesn't. So I started off there, and then that led me into doing that around Australia. So I was, every month I'd fly to Sydney or Brisbane. We do Whit Sundays, do events there. Out here in Cairns off Taylor Cay, which is just off Tully. We land on like a little small sand island, about 60 people, and we set up a DJ and have a big party. Like it's really cool, like really awesome footage. So I was doing that for a long time. And in my videography career, I was doing mostly that, some weddings here and there, but mostly that. So I wasn't really confident in making a documentary, you know. It's like, I know skydiving, but I don't know documentary filmmaking, you know. So I had to go and learn how to microphones, shotgun microphones, lapels, audio engineering, lighting. I had to buy all these like lenses and cameras, and still at that, like I was running like a, for those who know cameras, like a Fuji H2S. I was running a couple of those. They're not cinema cameras, right? But I was like, that's all I got. So I have to make do. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube. I was never into videography prior to this. Like 10 years ago, I was at university studying Japanese. So but I have a passion for it, and I just learnt as much as I could, and then I committed to it. And once I committed to it, once I said to the boys, look, I'll do it, I had no choice.
You're invested in. I
was invested into it, and I had to learn. So a lot of YouTube, a lot of practice just at home, learning stuff, and just went in there with confidence and sort of foreseeing the story. You know, because I knew the story in my head. I knew what I wanted to do. It was just like, how am I going to be able to lay this down?
Portray it.
Yeah, that was a big part too. That I think I sort of connected with, was how well that story was sort of told, and the ups and downs of it. Like, what was that collaborative sort of experience with them like? Being able to have to, obviously, them share their story and what they're going through, and then you sort of have to be there to capture that as well. Yeah,
it was really interesting, man. From the beginning, I, in my mind, had a vision of how I thought it was going to look, which is sort of 90% of what you see on the screen is what I envisioned from the get-go. So that's really good. But there were some hiccups along the way where, you know, one of the boys would say, I don't like, so I'll be up there and open. Ben had a little bit of fear, thinking that maybe he was going to be portrayed in the wrong way, right? And that's understandable, because he was going through a lot of anxiety.
Of course,
which is cool. You know, at the end of the day, it's their story. It's not my story. They've just asked me to try and create it. As a creative person, as you guys would be aware, it's the bigger the brief, the better, because you know what that person wants. But the shorter the brief, the more you sort of have to take charge in how things are going to look. And so I did take it on board, and I tried my best to try and, you know, make sure that wasn't the case, which it never was. Like Ben never, not once did anyone say like Ben had screwed up. But he had that anxiety within him, thinking that, I screwed up and I don't want to be portrayed in that way. So there were some hiccups along the way, no doubt. Trying to, and at this point, when I was having meetings with the boys, they hadn't even seen 1 second of footage. So, and I'm trying to explain to them, hey, I've got it all in my head. It's going to look like this. It's going to look like that. You just got to give me time.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. But they just, at some point, the process, they couldn't see it. You know? So that had me worried then. But then that motivated me to go even harder, you know, and get it done. So sort of without that pressure, I probably wouldn't have finished it, because I probably would have got to a point where I'm like, I'm over it. I can't be bothered. It sort of pushed me along the way. I spent a lot of time with them, one-on-one and then together, the three of us, which was awesome. And we got to know heaps about each other and learn about each other. And during the process of making the film, I was actually going through a really dark place myself. You know, I went through this breakup, and, you know, everyone thinks the breakup is like whatever, but it dug up a lot of like stuff from the past that I didn't think was going to manifest at the time. And so then I was sort of a bit lost, you know, and so spending time with those boys actually helped heal me as well. So the whole movie making process not only helped them, but it helped me.
It's quite cathartic for you too.
Because I was going to ask you, like, obviously you were presented with a massive challenge, and there's obviously the artistic side of you that wants to, you know, create this really amazing project that you're proud of, but clearly there's something within the project that you felt deeply enough that kind of took you through those hard times, and you kind of just hit the nail on the head. It was to be able to, you know, work through your own trauma and to be able to display that.
For sure, man, for sure. And at the time, I didn't think that would sort of manifest, you know. I thought the biggest worry that I had was, can I do this? You know, like, oh man, I know I can do videography and I can do photography, but am I that good? Am I good enough?
Yeah.
Self-doubt, you know, which is the biggest, you know, it's the most negative thing that we experience that holds us down in terms of mental health, is self-doubt. But I doubted myself. I doubted my own ability, and then that led to like all sorts of other stuff that came up in my mind. But I persevered. I kept pushing, you know. And even to this day, man, like I sit there and watch the movie, and as soon as the movie finishes, I'm sort of like, I don't want to hear anyone's reaction. Like, I just want to walk away, hide away. Like, you know,
like it's still there.
Especially amongst like people that are actually proper filmmakers. I'm only just figuring this stuff out, but it's been an awesome journey. I think anyone can do anything if they put their mind to it. You know? Like, you don't have to feel stuff down.
And don't they say, like, if you don't hate your first project, you spend too long on it? You know what I mean? Like, you had the opportunity presented, you seized it, and you should still be proud of what you've achieved at the end of the day.
Thanks, man.
And it's just onwards and upwards after that.
That's
really awesome.
How's that sort of felt as well? Like, obviously, like you said, Byron Bay Film Festival. Obviously, some awards that you guys have won. Best director as well, right?
It's surreal, man. It really is. It's probably the biggest achievement I've ever, you know, accomplished. You know, I've in my mind, I thought, like, you know, living in Japan when I was 15 for a year and then going back there again was like the biggest accomplishment in my life, and which it is, you know, to a certain degree for sure. But this was deep and personal, you know. And I doubted myself the entire process. I thought I would never get it finished. I thought I would never ever get to this point. The whole way I doubted myself. So for me, it's like a huge weight off my shoulder. It's a huge relief. Like, I actually did this. I accomplished it. And then for peers in the film industry to recognize it and give compliments, it's sort of like, wow, like it is surreal.
So I mean, like, even sitting here, I don't even think like we can sort of comprehend how many hours you probably put into just like filming, editing, like getting those clips together.
The filming was, we accomplished the filming sort of quite quickly. When I say quickly, it happened over a course of, say, about a year and a half. The filming part of it was all right. It was more the editing stage, and not the storytelling stage wasn't that hard. It was more mastering it. So like the audio, I probably spent more time on the audio than I did on anything else.
Thank you. What a pain in the ass.
And man, like we were using like semi-professional gear, you know. If we had a proper sound person there that was like running the sound, it would have been sweet. Like, I've learnt so much from this experience for sure. Next time I do it, which I don't know when it will be, I know exactly what I need to do.
Do you watch the film back and kind of cringe knowing that you could do different edits, different music, different mixing?
100%.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest thing is sound. The other thing is color grading. I now have a huge appreciation for colorists. People just think like, oh, you're a videographer, you can do everything. But like, if you look at a film production company, they have like, you know, sound engineers, lighting, and you know, assistant directors, and you know, all these different roles that make up, you know, this whole production. I accomplished all that by myself. I had one friend who's a drone pilot. I'm also a drone pilot, but he's like better than me. So I was like, you know, you do that stuff. And he also helped me with a few other things along the way. His name's Connor. He's one of my best friends. He's a legend.
Shout out Connor.
And Cam Putty. So Cam Putty's a professional skydiving videographer, and he's travelled all around the world. He's filmed skydiving over the pyramids and over like the Pacific Ocean, and he's travelled everywhere. He's definitely by far the best in Australia, if not the world, at skydiving videography and photography. And without those two boys, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish what we did. So all the skydiving shots that you see in the movie are all shot by him. He's jumped over Dubai, you know, where the palm is and stuff
and all that,
So those boys helped me, but in terms of like rocking up to an interview and just like setting up and getting it done, like I'm setting up the lights, I'm getting the cameras ready, you know, I'm adjusting the microphones, like, and I'm just like plugging my earphones into the mixer and just go, I hope it works.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Do you think if you hadn't done, you know, 300 jumps, and you've talked about before callousing, you know, that fear response, do you think it would have stopped you from seeing this project out or even taking it on to begin with?
I would never have taken it on. To tell a story about... The story's not necessarily about skydiving, but it involves a skydiving accident. So anyone who's a filmmaker or a videographer could have made this project. But if you have that extra understanding of skydiving, and then also on top of that, knowing people within the community as well, it made it a lot easier. So all the people that were interviewed, the skydiving experts, and all the people that were involved, I know all of them personally. So that made a huge difference. I think it would be hard for someone who's never experienced skydiving or is not in the industry to make that. It'd be like me going to try and make it like a motocross film. Like, I don't know anyone.
Even being able to reach out, you've got the connections to reach out to those people to interview them. You know what I mean? If they're... I could totally see it be perceived if someone else came into it and it looks like, you know, you just try and make money off this story or something. Like, that's not what it's about. Like, you had pure intentions, and that was able to be portrayed.
That was the first thing we, when we were having the discussions about the movie, I said, man, look, I'm not really interested about money in this scenario. For me, the message is the biggest thing. You know, seeing these guys bounce back is amazing. And I think the more people that see that, the more awareness we can spread about mental health. And because I feel it personally as well, I just thought this was the best thing to get involved in. And I didn't really care about how much it was going to cost. I didn't care about how hard it was going to be. I just felt like it was a calling. It was like, they've asked me to do this. I don't think I can do it. So I want to challenge myself, and I also want to tell their story. Let's get it done.
It's a win-win at the end of the day.
It's a win-win, man. It's a win-win,
Did you ever think about reaching out to anyone for like sponsorship and things like that? Like, obviously there's a lot of different like really good charities out there that are pushing that message.
We did, man, for sure. We did. And so we had an awesome organisation come on board called Give and Get. They pretty much paid for the whole movie. They're really cool. giveandget.org. And they're a non-for-profit where you... Don't quote me on this, but you donate money and do some sort of like exercise plans or whatever, and then the money gets spread out to like, you know, different organisations. It's a really cool program. And livin.org got on board as well. So livin.org are a brand down on the Gold Coast, and they're quite big, and they advocate for mental health. They've come on board, so
that's fantastic.
Do they help to provide context for how you are going to tell the mental health story?
No, not necessarily. That all came from myself.
You had the creative freedom.
100%. So the movie was made entirely independently. It was made like solely by myself, with the help of Ben and Mark, and of course with their input. But we had no one overseeing the project in terms like financially or like from a creative perspective. It was entirely our project. We approached people after we finished filming, and therefore it was more of a personal project. It was like, I want to tell this story, and this is the way it's going to be told.
Especially as like the director, having that freedom as well.
100%.
I guess like a lot of people listening probably won't have seen the film, like they're not as lucky as us to get a pre-screening of it, but I guess when people do go to see it, what's the message that you do want them to sort of go away and take away from it?
It's a good question, man. So I think the biggest takeaway of it is that you know, we're all human, we all go through these things, we all experience depression, we all experience anxiety, and for people to realise that you're not alone, that there's other people out there that can help you. I think the first thing to do is to open up. If you are in a dark place and you're feeling low, is to, you know, whether it's your best friend or whether it's your mum or your brother or your sister, is to open up. You know, all too often we hear of acquaintances or friends committing suicide, and it's sad. It's such a, you know, it's a loss, and it's a waste of life, really, you know. And you think, you know, what could I have done to help that person? So I think people watching this can see and hopefully be inspired by Mark and Ben's story and realize, like, you know what, like, yeah, I feel really depressed, but this guy was able to bounce back, you know, after what he went through. Maybe I can do it too, you know. It's like watching your favorite surfer on the TV and going, oh man, he shreds. Maybe I can do that too.
Yeah.
You know, it's totally different, but it's trying to inspire people to sort of recognize that, you know, you're not alone. This is human. And, you know, there's people out there that can help you for sure.
Just even something as simple as, like, even when Lucchi was like he's your typical, like, man's man, like, bald, tatted out, Muay Thai fighter, scary looking dude.
I was intimidated just watching him.
I was
I'm not even in the room with him.
The front door, I was good. But then just even when he's talking about, like, how he perceives being a man and that it's, like, being in touch with your feelings and being able to communicate that. I was like, you need people like that in the community that are able to portray that and able to say that as well too.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's how we start to sort of make it more prominent, is like having those role models.
Yeah,
like
100%.
People that you can look to, like you said, as inspiration that they're going through, because it's so tough to be in that sort of situation and feel so alone. And I think, like, this example of being able to show that, like, even if you can just reach out or have someone reach out, that's what sort of makes it a little bit easier.
And, you know, like, Mark, like, he went through it. We didn't actually touch on it in the documentary. We did record it, but he lost his father when he was 3 years old to suicide. So he didn't grow up with a father, and he went through a rough life. And the reason why people perceive him as a tough man, right? Which he does look tough, but it was because he never had a father figure around. So he was always, like, you know, defensive at school and getting into fights. But the reality is he's such a beautiful family man. You know, he has 2 beautiful sons and a wife. And the whole film process, he invited me into his home with open arms, and I stayed with him, and it was such an awesome experience. So, like, although, you know, he might look like a tough man on the outside, and no doubt he is, he's actually a really lovely guy. You know? And Ben too. Ben, you know, they're both beautiful men, and the fact that they're talking about this stuff is awesome. I really want to be a part of it for sure.
Looking back, for Lucch and Ben, for their story as well, how did they sort of? You said that they weren't really like friends beforehand, before the accident. So how did they sort of bridge that gap in the moment to actually reach out? Especially
it's a really good question, man.
I think that's the toughest part. For I feel like we've all sort of been in those dark places, and I can even remember sitting with, like, mates that I'd consider best friends and not feeling comfortable. Like, they're asking if, like, something's wrong, and you don't even want to be a bother in that moment to say something, even though they're asking if you're okay. So how do you sort of feel like you sort of bridge that gap?
To be honest with you, I actually didn't bridge that gap. It was all organic.
It was all
amongst themselves. So after the incident, Lucch bounced back and started jumping again, and then Ben was in hospital. But Lucch made a point to actually call up Ben and say, "Hey Ben, like, I forgive, like, let's be real, right? We all know here," and Ben agrees without being too harsh, but Ben stuffed up, right? And he knows that, which is fine. Like, we don't judge people for stuffing up. We're all human, right? But Lucch realised that he had stuffed up, and he didn't want him to feel guilty. So he called him and said, "Hey bro, it's all good. Like, I forgive you. My family forgives you. Like, we welcome you with open arms." And I think that for Ben, that meant a lot. Because I think he, at one point in the interview, it's not on the movie, but he was like, "Oh, you know, I don't know if this guy's going to, like, rock up to my house with a bunch of these, like, tough looking dudes."
That's how he's feeling.
So he would have had a bit of anxiety about that, but Lucch knocked that on the head straight away and said, "Hey bro, it's all good. You've got nothing to worry about. It's you know, I forgive you, and it's an accident and nothing to worry about." And then from there, they just started hanging
I
out.
think that's such a good lesson in itself as well too. Like another thing that, you know, young men can learn as well too. Like, you know, we all make mistakes, but it's just about, you know,
100%.
forgiveness as well too.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
massive.
he didn't hold it against him.
That can be one of the biggest battles in itself as well too. Being able to forgive people.
Often our ego takes over and it's like, no, I'm not saying thank you. Why should I say thank you?
Yeah.
But how hard is it to then turn around and say, you know what, I am going to say thank you.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything to do that, you know? And then it changes the whole game.
Or even like you said, like removing that ego part and being able to forgive someone, even though this whole ordeal happened.
Yeah.
Like obviously they both came out of it, and they're both alive, but like still being, I guess, vulnerable enough to be able to say like, I forgive you, even if something had happened to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misworded that. I meant to say sorry.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it costs nothing to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost
So
you
right.
time.
That's so true.
It
Yeah.
just, all it does is cost your ego, you know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what is your ego? You know,
Yeah.
it's what other people think of you, really. It's not, you know, as long as you love yourself, and be confident in yourself. And when I say love yourself, because that sounds really egotistical, I mean like self-love.
Yeah.
Like look after
And genuine.
yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like look after your body and, you know, eat good food and you know, remind yourself that you're a good person and that everything's okay. Then what does it cost you to turn around to someone that's like bumped you at a bar or you know, done something dirty to you and just go, hey mate, you know, it's all good.
And we can all like think of situations like that where something even as small as that can send people flying.
100%.
It's interesting when you bring up about looking after yourself too, because even with Ben, you can tell he's obviously like a very physical and active person.
Yeah.
And a lot of us base our mental well-being on that physical exercise and things like that too. And just being like physically incapacitated and not being able to exercise, like you can imagine he would have just sat there and ruminated and
that's
just
your
thought,
identity as well.
Yeah,
like,
it's your
that's part of
identity.
your
Yeah, it's what you do. And he wouldn't have been able to work, wouldn't have been able to exercise, couldn't even walk at a point there, and was just sitting there reminiscing, or not reminiscing, but just, you know, focusing.
Yeah. There was that one part
100%.
as well that you said, sorry, that I think Ben said in the film that, like where there was the point where he even felt like he couldn't even protect his partner.
Didn't feel like a man.
Like he didn't feel like a man anymore.
Yeah, man, 100%. So Ben's a paramedic. We actually didn't really touch on it or bring it up enough in the documentary, which we should have. But Ben's a paramedic, and in fact, some of the people that turned up to, like the paramedics that turned up, he knew personally, and they wanted to take him. They took him in the helicopter, but he was that embarrassed because he knew these
people
colleagues.
Really
He didn't want to go on the helicopter. So yeah, for Ben, it was tough in that regard. He's has a beautiful wife and just had a son at the time, a newborn, and he felt that he couldn't protect his family because he couldn't walk. You know, his wife had to look after him and bathe him and feed him and do all these things. And he's such an active dude. Like, he surfs, he skates, he goes to the gym. Like, he's just like a fit dude, you know, unlike myself. But he, for him, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's what brought him down a dark path, was the fact that he couldn't be the provider to his family. He couldn't partake in the activities that kept him happy. And he became lonely, he became sad. And it's a dark hole, you know, like a lot of us have experienced it, and it's not nice. And often you do feel lonely in those scenarios. And you often feel like a burden as well, you know, because you're like, I don't want to put my heartache or, you know, my negativity onto someone else.
Just shows you obviously like that physical aspect is such an important part of your mental well-being, but you can't use it as the only thing. Like, you've got to have those other things.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know, good support networks, good people. Yeah, because you're not always going to have it to rely on as well too.
100%, man. And actually, you just reminded me of an amazing human being. You've probably seen him cruising down the Esplanade. His name is Jonas, the guy with the dreadlocks, and he's in like a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that guy before? Around Cairns?
I don't think I have.
So Jonas was
he does the kites, does he?
Yes.
Yeah, I have seen him outside the hospital.
I have seen that. Yeah.
So Jonas was a skydiver. So Jonas became, he started off as a quadriplegic, but he's now like a paraplegic. He got movement of his arms again, but that was all from a skydiving incident. Yeah. That was, I can't remember the exact date, but it was probably, I'm guessing, around about 8, maybe 9 years ago, but he had a little bit of a bump, sort of similar to what Ben and Mark had, but nowhere near as bad. But it broke his, I think it was his C5, C6 spinal cord. And the doctor said you will never walk again and you'll never have movement of your arms. And he's originally from Germany. He's a lovely dude. This guy's like one of my closest friends. He's done so much to me. He's actually motivated me, man, to see this guy in a wheelchair and be so like positive. It's like, how do you do it, man?
Yeah.
Because he was the type of person that had to be skydiving and doing something physical. But now he flies his kites and he cruises up and down Cairns. He's an advocate for, you know, people with disabilities and mental health and stuff. I love that. And I wouldn't be able to do that, man. I would just crawl away.
Yeah,
for sure.
Especially when like that is your personality. You're an adrenaline seeker and you're physically unable to seek adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
I guess find a new hobby.
For sure.
But it's really cute. Like, I know I'll go for like runs along the Esplanade. I can see like all the kids playing underneath the kites and you can see the joy that brings him.
Yeah.
By having like all the kids like really interact and love it.
Man. Yeah, and he's accomplished so many things actually, Jonas. He swam from Townsville to Magnetic Island.
Wow.
Yeah. A friend paddled along with him on a stand-up paddleboard, but he accomplished that. And then they engineered this paragliding, like a motor. I don't know what you call it, but it had like a motor, and he would like sit in it, and then he had his like parachute.
Yeah.
And his plan was to fly from Byron Bay to Cairns.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think that project, it sort of got put on hold, and I think he'll start off again. But what an inspiration! Like he's definitely come a long way. Me personally, if I went through that, I'd just crawl away. I would delete everyone off social media and say, "See you later." But that guy's. There's times where I'm sitting there talking to him when I've been really low, and he's given me like positivity and you know and advice, and I'm like, wow, like my life's not
even
bad.
in this situation.
Is that the general attitude? Because I was speaking to Brody just before you came in, and I was watching the film and going, man, I need to live more. However you want to take that, but you would surround yourself with these like personality types, if you can call it, and they clearly have some kind of innate sense of resilience and and being able to bounce back. It was such a beautiful relationship that these guys have, that all of them have in this community. It's almost like maybe the world needs a bit more of that attitude.
I think so, man. So the common perception. Well, let me ask you guys a question. How would you describe a skydiver?
I screw loose. It's not a normal person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adventure seeker.
Yeah, a bit of in between.
Yeah. And no, but it's the common perception, right? That you know, people that skydive have a screw loose.
Yeah.
But the actual fact is, if you're down there and you see these people, they come from all walks of life. You know? We have people that are, you know, tradies that run their own business, doctors, lawyers, you know, mothers, single mothers, you know, fathers. And then you've got the young'uns that are in their 20s and they want to have a laugh. Yeah. But within the sport, everyone respects the fact that it is dangerous. Yeah. And so everyone looks after each other. So there's this
sense of community.
And like you go there and you don't even know these people and you're like, I probably would never speak to this person at a bar. Yeah. But now that I've got to know them, now that I've done a jump with them, I've had that little bit of an extra bond. I actually like this person. You know, this is sweet. I think the biggest thing is like we're trying to conquer a fear. You know, at the end of the day, yes, there may be some people out there that are adrenaline junkies that do get a high off adrenaline, but for a lot of people, they're just trying to accomplish something in their lives. You know, and it just so happens to be full of adrenaline. But it's not the perception of like these people that come out and they're just doing it for adrenaline, they're adrenaline junkies. It's actually not the case. Hey, you'd be very surprised.
Really interesting. Yeah,
that's really cool.
So the community is like really tight knit. Everyone looks after each other, and hence why these boys were able to sort of connect so quickly, you know, and strongly as well. And hence why I got involved. We're all involved in the same community, and we all respect each other. And you know, it's probably the one place where you will never see a fight. You know,
Yeah.
as much as there's like a lot of drinking involved afterwards, you know, everyone, they jump all day, they do like 8 jumps, they land. You'll never see a bust up, you know.
Yeah.
So do you think that ties back into what we were saying, how like people are sort of stripping back their ego when
100%.
like in this sort of community?
100%, yeah.
So I guess you sort of have to remove your ego to be able to jump with someone.
Yeah.
You guys are going to do a formation
ego's
in
not
the sky.
welcome in skydiving, and you'll quickly get shut down if you do have one. Don't get me wrong, everyone's, you know, it creeps up every now and then, but they're like most people, they get humbled straight away and they realise, you know what, like...
I think there's that theme too, there's always a bigger fish. Like you can be walking around with a big chest because you've done 100 jumps and the next guy with 1,000 jumps walks up, you know what I mean?
And you get that, and like the people that have been around for like years, you know, that have done thousands of jumps, they never talk about skydiving, you know what I mean? They don't need to. They do it because they have their own, you know, aspirations about skydiving. They don't need to talk about it. It's the ones that have only done like 10 or 20, they're the ones that are like, oh, yeah, you going, mate? I'm a licensed skydiver. Nice to meet you.
A vegan, a CrossFit, and a skydiver walk into a bar. Who tells you first?
Literally. 100%. Yeah. No disrespect to the newbies. You know? Like it's
all the vegans.
We've all been, But no, it is a really cool sport, man. Like, so I ended up getting my brother into it. He's now an NAF instructor, so he can teach people to get their license, which is amazing, you know. I was never the adrenaline junkie in my family. Like I was always a scaredy cat. He was always the surfer in the family and keen to do stuff. And he followed my footsteps, and now he's.
I was gonna say, did you skydived before him? Skydived before him?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I first jumped was like 2012, I think it was. Yeah. And then he was like, that's my younger brother skydiving. He's like, I need to do it now. So he just excelled. So I've actually pulled back. Like I haven't jumped in maybe about 5-6 years.
Wow.
I got scared. I got spooked. You know. And then we lost one of our brothers, and I was just like, you know what? I don't want to put that heartache on my mum. The fear of like losing another child. So I gave it up.
Do you think the film is going to promote skydiving or detract from it?
Man, that's a really good question. So initially when we came about the film, we had a few people mention the fact that it's like, hey, this is probably not a good look for skydiving. Do you maybe want to think about it?
So they're like trying to get you to stop?
Just sort of like people within the business going, you know, like...
Hey, how am I going to sell my business and how am I going to sell flights and jumps?
Which is understandable, right? I totally get it. So that was in the back of my mind making this film was, how do we make a film that showcases skydiving and showcases this like near-death incident without putting a bad image on skydiving? Because anyone from like 60 Minutes could come in and go, oh, this incident, this and that, and just make skydiving look terrible. You know? But because skydiving has played such a huge role in my life, and, you know, especially in my mental health, I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. So the plan that we had was, let's make this movie relatable to everyone. So like if someone who's never skydived in their life can watch it and get a little bit of understanding about skydiving and go, okay, I sort of understand how it works.
I think the way you told that with getting the experts in to explain just the key components of the AAD and everything, it actually, as someone who's never skydove, it definitely brought relief to me because I was watching this like not breathing. And I think the way you weave the narrative where I thought you think the movie is about Lucch at the start. And you think he's the victim here. But really, it's not a skydiving film. It's a film about resilience, mental health, and the love of two blokes.
100%.
And I think you really got the balance spot on there because it hasn't scared me fully away from doing skydiving as someone who's never done it.
That's awesome really to hear, man. No, thank you. You actually said that way better than what I could say.
We'll clip this.
Well, this is hopefully recorded, right? This is a podcast.
We'll take his voice, put it over you. Like.
Try doing the editing of that. What happened to his voice?
I'll just go like this. Man, you hit the nail on the head 100%. So we did like a little screening in the early stages when we had just finished, and this is before we like color graded or did any sound mastering or whatever. And someone came up to me and they were like, I want to skydive.
Cool.
After watching that. I said, wow, I didn't, that was one thing I didn't think of.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of people were going to go like, oh, I feel, I don't feel alone anymore, or I feel like I can talk to people, sort of mental health stuff.
Yeah.
Like that, I want to jump out of a plane.
Yeah, and it's like, I want to learn how to skydive now. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I did not expect that, you know, like that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, which is great, like a lot of people shy away, like in skydiving something bad happens, like, it's not like they're throwing it under the rug. Of course, like there's responsibility, and you've got the Australian Parachute Federation that oversees everything, but a lot of people are like, oh, let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Just
no,
move
let's
on.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, let's educate people on, these things. Like everyone in skydiving should see that incident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially up and comers, so they can realise this is the reality of what can go wrong.
This is what can happen. Yeah.
So
Wow, so it actually maybe promotes the industry.
yeah, and it does, and that's the thing. Like, and people go, oh, okay, I can see how it works, and I can see how intricate it is, and how much detail goes into like the licensing and the training and the the AAD and all that kind of stuff. And then people trust it and go, let's give it a crack. I didn't have any of that education when I started.
Yeah.
I was just like, let's just have a go, see what happens.
Have they tightened up a lot on the laws and the regulations around skydiving?
For sure, yeah. It's really strict, man. Like, it's not, you can't just put on a parachute and jump out of a plane.
Yeah.
It's quite like military orientated,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. You rock up, you do your training, and if you stuff up, you don't pass. You've got to make sure you pass before you can move on.
Yeah.
And the people that are training you are highly competent. They know what they're doing. So it's quite strict.
Yeah.
Base jumping, on the other hand, it's sort of like overseas. It is regulated to a point, but it's
a bit looser.
anyone can just sort of go and do it.
Yeah.
Most people go and do their skydiving course first because you learn the fundamentals of how to fly your body.
Yeah.
But some people don't.
Yeah.
Shit goes wrong. But in skydiving, it's overseen by the Australian Parachute Federation. They do a very good job to oversee it and represent skydiving.
I think I'm hearing a base jumping documentary coming up next, hey?
Well, it won't be about me, man.
No, but it'd be like, even what you've touched on now, it'd be awesome to explore the industry and just hear more about it.
Well, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, man, there's a particular dude, his name is Scotty Hisco.
Yeah.
He does proximity flying over, he's an Aussie boy. He's originally from Sydney. He's a legend. Yeah. But he does proximity flying over in Europe, man, and you watch him on Instagram and your mind will be blown. Like, he's literally like that far off the ground, flying in a wingsuit, and it's crazy. And it fascinates me too. It's like, what gets you to do that?
Yeah.
Like, I want to go home at night and eat a bag of Doritos and play PlayStation.
So what do you think the next project be? Because you speak so passionately about this, this first piece of work, and it's clearly, it can't just be viewed as like a single standalone piece of art. I mean, there's so many other implications on, the skydiving industry, but also mental health.
Sure.
Do you want the film and the project to have legs and longevity beyond just an hour's worth of entertainment? And what would mean the most to you from the film?
That's a really good question, man. In terms of skydiving, I think I've done it long enough, and I've been in the industry long enough that I don't really need to do anything skydiving related anymore. Yeah. I'll probably still be involved in, some cool events here and there. But the whole mental health aspect is definitely something that I'm passionate about. So I had this idea of making a movie about my own experience with mental health, and then showing different ways of trying to conquer mental health. So whether it's through religion, whether it's through medication, whether it's through, different types of drugs, whether it's through whatever, like exercise, showing the different ways of how people deal with mental health, and then sort of coming up with the conclusion of what I think is the best way to deal with mental health, which I think the best way to deal with mental health is exercise, man. I think exercise is the biggest thing. So I came up with this concept of the happy movement, where because a lot of people are scared to go to the gym, or they get anxiety about going to the gym, because it can be a scary place, right? I hate going to the gym. But I love hiking in mountains, and I like skipping rope. So I thought, those vulnerable people, why not get them together and go, hey, we're going to go to the Esplanade and pump some music, and we're just going to do jump rope for 30 minutes, and boost everyone's confidence. Or go hiking up in Stoney's Creek or something. So that's probably the next step I'll take.
Okay. Well, let us know when you do that, mate. We'll get behind you.
100%. Yeah. And then the other project's probably like a fishing documentary, man, because I just want to do some cool filming, you know, like after I've done this, I'm like,
get all the toys out.
Yeah, I just want to do something that, like, visually.
We're in the best place in the world to do it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's awesome.
But you guys loved the movie? It was good?
Yeah, honestly.
Absolutely.
Like, blown away by it in terms of just like the storytelling, the shots as well, like some of those POV shots, and then like the actual documentary style shots of how you captured everyone's interviews. It was just incredible, I think. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's just my takeaway.
Yeah, I was doing like about 3 different things at once. Had the washing on, had the meal prep. I was going all through it. I started it, and within the first 2 minutes, everything was off. I was sitting on the couch staring at the TV, and I was just like absolutely locked in. I was. All distractions were away.
I was wrapping presents.
And nothing got wrapped.
It's not getting done.
No,
it's not getting done.
Not skydiving gift cards for Christmas.
No, I put that one back.
So. Obviously, premieres this weekend.
Yeah, this
officially.
weekend, man. Yeah, so Saturday the 14th down at Hoda Theatre.
Yeah.
So it's a 600-seater theatre. It's awesome. Got a red carpet with photographers and stuff. It's going to be really cool.
That's exciting. Mate.
So there's a lot of
Gold Coast, you said?
On the Gold Coast,
yeah,
this Saturday. So it's going to be it's going to be awesome. It's something I didn't think we were going to get to, and now we're here. It's sort of like, this is it. This is the final stop, you know. And so it's going to be awesome. We'll have a big showing there, and from there we want to spread it to as many people as we can.
How can people start to see it?
Yeah, where are we watching it?
Yeah, so after we release it on Hoda, we're just going to wait for Christmas and New Year's to sort of pass by, and then people can expect to see it online. Hopefully YouTube for free
awesome.
From around January. So
amazing.
We'll definitely spread it out.
And same here, we'll definitely be sharing
give us a date. We'll
thanks,
put it out.
boys. Thank you.
It's awesome.
And man, you guys are doing a really good job. Like for a bunch. I thought you were like 25.
as long as it looks all that matters, man. So as long
I've
as I
been talking about Ben's age for so long now. I've been biting my tongue. I'm just saying.
Dude, I'm Dorian Gray. Like I made a deal with the devil.
He's going to stay that young. You're going to overtake him.
The career I've chosen.
You're going to start going little grays on the
I'm going to be bald before we know it.
And then he'll start giving you shit back.
But good on you boys. Like, it takes a lot to like stand up and do something like this.
Yeah.
Same with me. When I was doing this, I thought it was going to be a bit of judgment, this and that. But man, hats off to you. He's doing an awesome job, and I wish it's nothing but the best.
Any guests we've reached out to that's nervous about coming, please clip this, listen to this.
Yeah.
It's not scary. We just want to talk.
No, it's not scary, man.
And same to you, like as well. Like, thank you so much for reaching out to us, because I think you sent through a message. And as soon as I sort of shared it with the boys, like all three of us were like straight away, like, let's go.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, let's get them on.
100%, man. I'm I'm a Cairns boy. Not that I was born here, but I'm proud to represent Cairns, and you know, and especially men like yourselves that are having a crack. And man, it's awesome.
Appreciate
Love it. Thanks for coming.
Love that.
Adios.
Cheers, Paddy.
Cheers, brother. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.